Fun onomatopoeias are ubiquitous in comics and are the method for expressing sound. But it's easy to forget they're not the only way of visualising sound, and that's why I wanted to look at Jason Lutes' Berlin in this video. Berlin, I hear you question? Yeah, it's a weird choice on the face of it, but I think Jason Lutes does some really interesting stuff with his work to create sound, and I want to explore that. If you're unfamiliar with the work, and therefore why it's an unusual choice for such a subject, it's because it covers the Weimar Republic, a period for Germany stuck between both world wars, but one that had huge ramifications for the world as it saw the rise of the Nazis. Rallies and fights in the streets between communists and fascist brown shirts were common, as Germany swayed from possible future to possible future. At the same time, Berlin was becoming gay capital of the world that some individuals could enjoy with a tenuous freedom. The rich were able to enjoy the exciting world of the roaring 20s with jazz musicians travelling over the Atlantic to play in clubs. In contrast, thousands struggled to keep themselves fed and clothed. Berlin was a melting pot of contrasts, about to boil over with devastating results. Berlin the graphic novel manages to capture this in all its glory, a dense novel packed with sympathetic characters and snapshots of history. The black and white artwork representative of the contrast seen in the lives of its inhabitants. Lutes worked hard to ensure an accurate display of the city and time. There is so much you could talk about in this one book, but why deprive myself of future videos when I can just talk about this one thing? And that's the sound, the noise of a city making history. And like Lutes wants to portray an accurate story visually, he also takes his time to immerse us further by highlighting certain sounds. I'm hoping that this video will encourage you to look at how artists and writers try to express ideas, visually communicating with you, or maybe even encourage those creatives among us to experiment with how they present certain scenes or acts. But let's get on with it, and let's look at Lutes' work and his use of sound. You will see lots of city vistas and street scenes throughout the work. In these scenes, readers may automatically fill in some of those sounds and noises unconsciously, like the sound of a crowded street. That hustle and bustle and disjointed conversations are something we can all imagine. This is a natural part of the comics world, but Lutes' artwork makes these scenes full of life. Throughout the series you will find the traditional comic book method of the aforementioned onomatopoeic phrases like the ch of the train chugging along as Severing and Marta arrive into Berlin, or the staccato packs and pocks of the police opening fire on unarmed communists. These phrases litter the story, perhaps even more liberally than in traditional comics. In Berlin, size represents volume, a small psh from Margaretta's coffee dregs splashing across Severing's face, followed by a bigger slap as her hand makes contact. Although liberally used, Lutes doesn't show every possible sound, instead using them to enhance his storytelling. The chuk 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 of a ticker tape machine makes an appropriate stand-in for a clock, ticking down the seconds before a man takes his life. Almost every comic book uses different styles of lettering to emphasise how different words might be said, and Lutes is the same, using bold or italics to highlight how a character is speaking, and how you should interpret it. Lutes goes a step further with sentence case dialogue for normal volume and uppercase for yelled words. So far, so good, but nothing innovative. Nicely done, of course, but stuff you will have come across before. Now, let's look at a specific scenario, where Lutes combines what we've looked at so far. Marta and Severing are having breakfast at a cafe. A tiny crack and a plop as the egg is broken and the contents dropped into a cup. The pair talk as Marta mixes her eggs together with salt and pepper, the spoon making a gentle ting ting. Suddenly a huge clunk shocks the characters and us, withdrawing us backwards to a wider view. All of us have been so engrossed with the breakfast arrangement and the characters' terse conversation that it takes a loud clunk to snap us out of it. But it had been sound that drew us in the first place, adding the audio element in our imagination. We see that a communist was banging on the window, brandishing a placard. Lutes then cleverly uses the guttering between the panels to act as a window, with both panels acted out simultaneously rather than sequentially. The scream of "down with the bourgeoisie" is split with the diners hearing a quieter, more muted version courtesy of the glass, with the bold indicating a much louder volume out in the street. It's simple, but I think it's really creative. As depicted in that last scene, Berlin was fragmented. While some fought for bread and shelter, others got to enjoy a more luxurious lifestyle. The late 1920s in Berlin was exciting if you knew the right people and hung out in the coolest bars. You could get to experience a new sound of jazz making its way from the States. Whilst fighting spilled out into the streets, music floated up into the air. Hear the notes startle the crows into flight, joining them as they head towards the sky. And sometimes you just have to let the music play. No notes or sounds are explicitly shown here. Just the movement of the clarinetist Kid Hogan is enough to get the reader filling in the blanks in their mind. Lutes is confident enough in the reader's imagination to take them there. It doesn't matter if you fill those panels with Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue or the Muppets theme tune. And there's another little trick Lutes does, the absence of dialogue. Take this interaction between Martha and Severing again, but with Margareta. Our attention is divided between the three of them equally, as their conversation starts to get heated, but after one comment things change dramatically. Margareta mentions she's having a fundraiser for Hitler, and our view changes. Suddenly we're in Severing's shoes, wearing his shock and horror. How does Lutes do this? Simply by removing Martha and Margareta's dialogue in their speech bubbles. For a book that does not focus on a single character, Lutes definitely gets us to be Severing for a page. He's so taken aback that he cannot hear anything else being said. He has to process it. All other matters put to the side as he is lost in his own thoughts. Again, let's find another scenario where Lutes combines some of these tricks. If we travel to the apartment of Horst Wessel, a Nazi lowlife. He's arguing with his girlfriend and we see this escalate into the bold dialogue. Capital letters are hurled at each other. Suddenly, just as Martha and Severing were, they're interrupted by a loud noise. Someone is knocking at the door. We're forced into Wessel's perspective. Two figures stand waiting, with one raising his hand, a gun. A severed capital P escapes the page as Wessel hears the last thing he will ever hear, before nothingness.